this morning with with titles or any of that stuff because it's just going to be too much of a tooth pull because we are on the road and it's good enough that it's there. Look, I can make Johnny completely fade away. Look at that. Even your gray shirt is making it visible. You're like Marty McFly.
That's the first thing that comes to mind.
It is. It is. Hi, chat room. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the show. How are you? We're going to
Oh, let
start,
me go
and I
pull it up.
think, yep. And then I'm going to unmute them and play. Whoops. Let's see. Enable. Okay, cancel. Um, hopefully, boink. Take that off. There you go. We should be up and running and all good and everything and stuff. Yeah. And then I'll open up my window for my chat stuff, and then we shall see what we shall see.
Liking the stream, showing the chat, popping it out.
Now, I do not have Chicago playing through out to the
Okay,
internet, so because it will loop.
right.
Yep, we're good. It's actually better, ladies and gentlemen. We're talking to the ghost that lives in our head. It's me and Johnny Million. It's the House Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide, and I'm in Denver, city by the bay.
Hey,
Yeah,
what?
and yeah, Denver, city by the bay. Um,
The,
that isn't
the
that what?
old
Isn't that
Denver
from
Bay.
It's from Anchorman, right?
Anchorman?
You know,
Yeah.
yeah, I think it's maybe Anchorman 2. Hi everybody, welcome to the show. It's going to be a crazy week. This is the week of the probably one and only debate. Joe
Yeah.
Biden he is at Camp David, being I think it's colloquially called an adult about the whole thing. He is preparing, and
Do they, when he
yes,
prepares for a debate, do they have him like chase chickens around the snow and pull big
feel like
heavy
a
logs?
Kentucky Fried Idiot. Um, Oh, all right. Chicago, they can't hear you. That's very strange. Let me fix that.
They can't hear me?
Um, no, but I can remedy that. Don't worry. I think they will now pretty
With
well.
all my
Say
amazing
something.
jokes? Yeah,
Yep.
I'm, the, Rocky chased chickens, so Joe Biden
Now,
chases chickens.
okay. I will raise this up in volume, and we will all be good. So, yeah, one of the clear things that I think a lot of people are looking at the Trump. Obviously, Trump world has its own kind of crazy rules for what constitutes normal, and I have to say overall. Um, they have set such a low bar for Joe Biden for this week that they're trying to sort of undo it over the last um, whatever. And Chicago, I'm trying to turn this up so you can hear us. Hopefully, you let us know if it's all right or if it's getting better in any way or worse. Just let me know.
And people in the
But
chat are picking on the spelling of my name on my crayon, but I like the extra
oh,
N.
oh yeah, yeah. That's I'll fix that. But that's the
Johnny.
least of my. So
Oh, I
thank
like
you.
that better. Johnny.
Nay, it's your motorcycle name. Um,
Yeah.
uh, Chicago. I hope we're a little bit louder, or you can remedy use boosting us up. Let me know. Excellent. Okay, thanks very much. So
Hey.
because if I boost it on this end, it'll just go to the moon. All right. So the big thing is that over the last, quite frankly, since before the 2020 election, so you can see how well this worked. And thank you, Berkeley Dowd, for the super chat. That they've been painting a picture of Joe Biden as a doddering old fool who's also a master criminal, and it's always been a weird, you know, biphrenic uh,
Boy, would you
criticism
want
of
that
him,
both ways.
and it just doesn't work. It just does not
And
work both
in
ways.
the same way that they want us to believe that Trump is still the acting president, but say that the country's in decline.
Yeah, or that he's in charge of the military, but everything the military is doing, say, training Taiwanese, soldiers, or working with Israel or Ukraine, is all Trump's doing. or not doing, or again, there's the good military and the bad military. There's a reason why his rallies have gone from 35,000 to three, and that's because what you see, ladies and gentlemen, before you in MAGA world is the best description I can give of it is a pot left full of soup left on the stove, and you forgot about it. And over time, all the water, all the liquid, all the gelatinous parts, everything was cooked out of it, and all there is now is this hardened, anti-nutritious, cancer-causing crust all around the bottom of the pan, and that's it. And Donald Trump is still trying to sell soup to people from that. He's standing over this burnout pot with a ladle, going, "Look how full it is," and it ain't. The other problem that they have is that they've set up for Joe Biden this very low bar for Friday, and now they're trying to walk it back with with the drugged out stuff, the jacked up Joe stuff that Sean Hannity's been swinging and missing on. But the problem is that Trump is surrounded by people who, if there were a drug that could take you from dementia to smart enough to beat the greatest businessman that ever lived in a debate, they'd all be taking it already. As a
Oh
matter of
yeah.
fact, I'm fairly certain anything even close to it, Ronnie Jackson was handing it out like candy in the White House.
Oh,
Like,
got it.
you know, I'm one of those people. I'm a bit of a purist. You know me. I don't do any drugs. I don't drink. I don't smoke. I don't do any of this. I've often been curious as to whether even Botox qualifies as a PED for poker players. I think there's got to be strict
Yeah.
rules, right?
I
What
don't
what if
think
you
that they should be
inject your
allowed to
tail
wear
out of existence?
sunglasses.
Right. No, they should not be able to wear sunglasses, visors, even grow facial hair.
Yeah. Yeah,
Oh,
that's the hard
that's
part.
interesting. Um, got that, Johnny. So
Okay.
we will see over this week how they try to play both sides of that fence, and they don't really have a choice because if they are all heading towards a situation where if Biden comes out and he doesn't do very well or he flubs a particular word or a particular fact or whatever, they're going to want to jump on it as he's demented and old and whatever. But if he does perfectly fine, if he kills it, they're going to say jacked up Joe. That'll be the storyline. The problem they're going to have is when he threads the needle, when he acts like just a solid president. He doesn't get hyper
Right.
energetic. He deals with stuff. If Trump's being, and by the way, that whole thing about like having the mics mutable means that he doesn't have to say to Trump this time, "Will you shut up?" like he did last time, which
Right.
was a big hit in that one, but it eliminates that moment. And
Right.
that's going to be the hardest part for them. The hard part is going to be if if Joe Biden shows up as the professional, and I don't mean Leon, um, but everyone. I mean specifically.
As problematic as that movie is, I still adore it.
Um, I don't find it problematic at all. I mean, the whole
You
like
know?
her getting infatuated with him and that kind of part, because he doesn't
Yeah.
reciprocate.
No, he doesn't.
Natural. Hey,
Yeah, no, he does
I
treat her
had a
like a daughter.
yeah. And it freaks him out that when she says, "I think I love you," he spits his milk out and he walks out of the room, and he's like, that whole part. It's totally salvaged by
Yeah,
that.
you're right.
And as
You're right.
someone who had a maddening crush on Linda Carter when I was 8 years old, that's not her fault, right?
No, but
Yeah, that's
I think she would have reciprocated. You at 8? Come on.
yeah, I know. I was a catch. So, you know, good stock, I
God,
think is the
now
phrase.
I see those
Yeah,
Linda Carter clips now, and I don't know how I survived that when I was
I
watching
don't
that as
either.
a
Yeah,
young, because
yeah. Well,
it's just as intense now, if not more
yeah, right.
so.
It never goes away, right?
No.
And and the only other difficulty with her, of course, is that she's a wonderful person. It's brutal.
Yeah.
She's a lovely human being. So, on that note, back to the
Okay.
topic at hand. That we have to, that be prepared for the news and even Twitter to be like, uh, all aflutter with all the randos talking about what they're going to do to make Joe, salvage this. And Trump, quite frankly, having an increasing panic that this thing is at night. Now
Oh no.
there's been there's been a back and forth about Trump and his, flubbing of words and his craziness and all that stuff. The I hope they go and look at the oranges, right? That
Yeah.
business.
Yeah, I
Um,
imagine he gets worse as the day wears on.
well, that's exactly it. So that's what sundowning is. For the who's at home and those who haven't been in this situation,
I'm not familiar with that
where
term.
they've
Help
been
me
around.
out.
Okay, sundowning is when someone who has been like has primary dementia essentially gets worse as the day goes on. In the beginning of the day and in the afternoon, when the sun is at its zenith, they are okay. They can manage. They can remember things. They can focus. But as the sun goes down, they start to lose that ability. It's their dementia starts to kick in. It's a very specific aspect of certain forms of dementia. It's not ubiquitous
Is
across
that how
everything.
Lady Hawk worked?
Yes, that's exactly it. Thank you. Yeah, is that that movie's an allegory. Nobody actually turned into a bird or a wolf. They just went nuts.
They just lost their goddamn minds
Yeah,
every
yeah.
night. How did I turn
If you
pink?
saw it,
Look at me, I'm pink.
yeah. I don't know. I don't know what happened. If after you changed your camera, you leaned back and something happened. It's very
Oh
funny.
my god.
Um, Yeah, there you go.
Okay.
But in the uncut version where they don't use the special effects, it's just Matthew Broderick running around with Michelle Pfeiffer barking at everybody, or
Thinking
like going "caw"
he thinks
and
she's a
waving her
bird. He thinks
arms.
he's a
Yeah,
wolf.
he thinks he's a wolf, and they're both nuts, and he's just walking them around the Dark Ages. That might
Oh,
be
I'm so happy with
the
that.
funniest image that has come into my head in forever. So, it's just the
Well,
joy.
thank you for
Thank you.
teaching me what
Thank you.
sundowning is.
Well, that's you're gonna learn no matter what, and I don't mean because of you. I mean because that's what's going on with Trump. That is happening, and it is why all of his rallies lately have been during the day. You
Oh
notice that
yeah.
difference? Most of his rallies used to be at dusk and then into the evening. That has stopped entirely.
I never noticed this, but yeah.
And the only ones he's doing right now that are after dark are not filmed. They are the fundraisers, they're the private events, they're also the ones where when they interview people that have gone to these things, he is at his most rambly.
Mm.
And he's not making sense and not tying stuff together. Now, he also had a big business meeting with some tech CEOs and some rich dudes,
I
and we'll
heard
talk
this
about
went
that. In
horribly. Yeah,
Oh yeah, we'll talk about that on the other side. And that's
please.
exactly who he's going to be at the debate. That's exactly. There's no fix. He's not going to become presidential because he becomes president, and he's not going to become sane between now and Friday or Thursday, rather, or any day, anytime soon. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Parks Radio program, Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. So, yeah, this has been,
I'm
you know,
I'm very
I'm
pleased with the
surprised you
Lady
didn't know
Hawk
that,
joke.
huh? Oh yeah,
I'm very pleased with the
just
Lady Hawk joke. Thank you.
genius, genius,
Thank you.
teed up, so good, killed me,
So what were you surprised I didn't know?
killed about sundowning.
Yeah, I hadn't heard of it before.
Okay, yeah, so that's a relatively new term for most people, I guess. But it's obviously been around for a long time. But I think a lot of it has to do with like it's becoming more common because of Trump, because it gets really bad. It's
I
super
um
weird.
I was
Yeah.
fortunate enough to not have to watch either of my parents descend into dementia.
Hmm.
So I've a lot of it has been
Right.
removed for me.
Right. Well, in the case of like I saw my grandfather go through it, and sort of my grandmother, although that was fairly quick, because it was, but and the rest of them were kind of spry up till the bitter end.
Yeah.
But he is a classic example of it.
Yeah.
There is no better example of that effect right now than Donald Trump.
There's somebody in the
Yeah.
chat, Kelly, says, my Alzheimer's patients often suffer from that. When the sun goes down,
Hmm.
they get confused and really act out.
Yeah.
Thanks,
Like I said,
Kelly.
thank you, Chicago. Um, there's a Law and Order episode about it, where this guy's young son
Oh, yeah?
is suffering early dementia and is sundowning, and they make the point of like proving that the father was engaged in these experiments to try and cure it. Um,
When I heard
yeah.
when I hear sundowning, and this is not making light of either situation, I think of sundown towns. The
Sorry, you
the
were
ones
saying
where
Johnny Million. Yeah, you were saying welcome back.
Oh, I
We're
apologize. Can we
on.
just
Yeah.
come back? Yeah, this I didn't mean I don't mean to make light of either situation, but when I heard sundowning, I thought of sundown towns where, if you're black, you
Oh,
need
like
to not be outdoors.
right. Yeah. Well, he gets closer to the kind of person you might run into in those areas when he does
For
that.
real.
Now he is having a rally. I mean, if you can call it that. A lot of them are, by the way, much smaller and indoors, and someone else's. He's been the other thing that I don't think has been making enough news lately is that Donald Trump has
The
been
piggyback?
glomming. Yeah, he's been piggybacking on Turning Points USA. He does their gatherings, which is the new CPAC since Matt Schlapp,
Yeah.
um, that issue with him groping one of his male volunteers, and then that drove away, I guess, some level of turnout
Just
there.
set
Not
your
a lot,
watch
but
to it,
enough.
man. Just set your watch
And
to
it's
it.
the same people. It's
Yep.
the same people that will show up at CPAC will now go to Turning Points. And the interesting thing is, Turning Points started. This is Charlie Kirk's organization. Charlie Kirk is the guy that Trump went and saw right after he went to the black church filled with white people last week. And I'm sure you saw some of that, Johnny. Um,
Yeah, that was
yeah,
nice.
yeah, it was glorious. It was hilarious. It was super fun. But he went right from that to the Charlie Kirk event, the Turning Points USA thing, where everybody was holding up these flags and wearing T-shirts that said "White Boy Summer," and Charlie Kirk is the guy who says if he sees a black pilot, he wonders if he's qualified because he doesn't trust affirmative action, and he judges all people based on he blames affirmative action for him being a racist, which is hilarious. Um, the right,
Wow.
it's I
Wow.
mean, wouldn't it be on the
I
person
remember
who gave him the test? Yeah,
I had
yeah,
an acquaintance in like 2020, right when everything was online, and I was doing a lot of my
yeah,
12-step stuff online, and I was getting to know people. And this person that I thought was very smart and reasonable was explaining to me their appreciation of Charlie Kirk. And I hadn't, 4 years ago, he wasn't huge yet.
yeah. Right.
So I,
I mean, his
I
head
looked him
was, but
up,
his face was still small.
right. I looked him up, and it took me 2 seconds of Googling to realize that he was an
Awful.
absolute racist whack job. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, really? That guy? And then all of a sudden I realized, oh, you're a Trumper. This is horrible.
Hmm. Yeah. And Kirk has he is what I would call Nick Fuentes adjacent. He is his
Hmm.
problem with Nick Fuentes is not his overt racism, sexism, and misogyny and all that kind of stuff. It's that he communicates it in a poor way and therefore makes the movement look bad before it's too late. Because that's what dog whistles and all this kind of stuff is from the MAGA world. So Project 2025 is to some degree. And let me tell you something. The fact that Project 2025 has to exist is good news for Democrats and people who want normal government. And I'll tell you why. Because if Donald Trump was every bit the businessman they said, who was smart and would put conservative judges in and was sent by the Lord Jesus Christ to be his representative in the U.S. government, they wouldn't have to give him an instruction manual. The reason that they are not only because this book's been around for a long time, this is nothing different They just add another year onto it and pass it out to the next
Yeah.
guy. It's none of the stuff that's in there is new. As a matter of fact, the Heritage Foundation picked all of Donald Trump's Supreme Court justices. They're the ones who chose them for him. They gave him a list. They said that there's a little asterisk next to the ones that they like in particular, and then that was, and he just went, okay. I heard that they're very highly recommended. Right?
Right.
That's the
I
issue,
heard
right? And
people
yeah,
tell
and the
me.
other part, yes, the other part too is that gives him an out, so he can blame everybody if they turn out to be bad. And this is what he's doing with Roe, for example. It's a great example of and because Roe v. Wade, when Dobbs overturned it, effectively making it null and void. You've lately heard him say, well, everybody wanted to do this. Every legal scholar wanted this sent back to the states. For 50 years, they wanted to do this. Well, this is nowhere near true. It's an absurdity. But the reason he's saying that is because that issue is good for Democrats. It's good for Democrat-leaning independents. It's good for even Republican women, whether they like it or not, to have that choice, that freedom, I think is the word they like to use so much, and control over their own bodies. And nobody, but there was a circle of people around him that was telling him this. He had his group of sycophants, some of which he had brought in with him because they were blowing smoke, and part of them because they had been assigned to him by groups like the Heritage Foundation. And now they have a problem, besides the fact that their candidate is sundowning while they're trying to tell everybody that Joe Biden is the most effective, uncatchable criminal in the world, and yet can't find his way off a stage. Right? They've got a bigger
He's just a
problem than that. They've
battering
got
fool who wanders away from press events.
yeah, right. Who likes to say hi to everybody instead of just the people that are written on the note card. Say hello to this person. He's like, but there's all these other nice people here. God forbid.
Yeah.
So, and that was another, like, I feel like again, my streaming show I call the Talking Points Graveyard, because we've heard so many right wing talking points that were going to define the election for them, and they're gone. They just fall away, and it's because there's no there. Well, the Heritage Foundation has this instruction manual that they're handing out to him and other Republicans who are supposed to keep him in line through the next, cycle if he gets in.
Mm-hmm.
And now they've always had that. They had it when he went in. Again, they handed him his list of Supreme Court justices. So why is it getting publicized now? Why are they calling it Project 2025 and releasing it and making a big show of it when it's always been around? It's in its previous iterations. It's had a lot of, versions. Contract with America, the New Federalist Papers that the Tea Party were waving about. So why now? Because nobody trusts Trump to even do the job they think he wants to do. They have no idea. So yesterday, I played a clip on my show of him meeting with David Sachs and like 3 other billionaires who are trying to convince other billionaires that Trump is their guy. And they would ask him questions like on any other podcast or something that he was on. And this was not edited. This was just, it's like watching a Zoom call with Donald Trump. It was a mess. There was no like Fox edit where they could cut out the rando garbage that he says. And these guys were teeing him up. They were asking him leading questions. So it was almost like they ran him down like, hey, our constituency, the other billionaires, they want to hear you say this. Okay, you say this, this, and this,
They're
and
just
they're
trying to
in.
alley-oop him the whole time.
Yeah, exactly. We'll put it on the rim. You just tip it in, and that's that. It'll be easy peasy, one and done. And every time they tried to tee him up, he wandered out into the reeds. And in some instances, he went with his kind of just, I don't know, muscle memory, idiotic response that he does to everything. He'll start talking about crime in Democrat cities or what have you.
Yeah. Oh, that's
but he literally,
favorite,
they were talking at one point. One of them asked him about taxes, that overtaxation is the reason we have crime. This is what one of these guys was saying. And the reasoning behind it was almost dumber than the stuff that Trump said. But he teed this up, so it was fairly easy. If you were on board with this guy and you recognize all I got to do is play ball, and this dude's going to feed me $200 million for my campaign, and Trump couldn't even do that. And here's what I noticed of all those guys: these rich guys who, like him or not, they're. I mean, I think all of them were scumbags in a majority of categories, but they know what they're doing. They're smart enough to be conniving in their industry, and they've made a lot of money, and they certainly know the intricacies of the system because they make a living gaming it all the time. Right? These guys are the ones in the know, and they're sitting there listening to him answer, going, "Dear God, what have I done?" They're all just like, they all look depressed. Whenever they cut to the wide shot of, the Zoom call shot of all five of them, they were all either mouth agape or just like face slack. Just, oh my God, what is he talking about? Because if you walked up to any of them and they'd had a couple of gin fizzes and you said, "Hey, who's smarter, you or Donald Trump?" They'd laugh in your face,
Right.
right? And then they throw what's left of their gin fizz in your face. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Every plus is a minus for the Republicans right now. Everything they're bragging about or pushing for, they know is a liability, even the border. We'll be back.
Yeah, I saw this.
Yes.
Did you see? Do you ever watch the Good Liars stuff?
Oh, yeah. Love those guys.
One of the Good Liars was at a Trump rally, and a guy was wearing a T-shirt that said CNN is fake news,
Yeah.
and so he just genuinely asked, like, "Oh, all right, what? Okay, so what are they saying that's fake?" Crickets.
Yeah.
They don't
Well, that
know.
was okay. The guy at the rally that I went to, remember, I went to the Trump rally in Vegas,
Yeah.
and there was a guy standing next to me in line. I have tons of footage of this idiot, and everything was flat Earth. The sun revolves around the Earth. NASA's never been to the moon. Vaccines are here to kill us. NATO is trying to push gay rights on Russia. That's why they're fighting back. And Donald Trump's Jeffrey Epstein's wingman was the perfect guy to save children from human trafficking. Like, just bananas. And anything I push back on, he had a go-to answer, which was, "I really haven't looked into it."
Yep.
I haven't really looked into it, but thank you, Chicago. And
Except
it
he
was
did his
so
own research.
yeah, but he didn't. And that's also a big story with these guys, is that they say do your own research, but they don't, because they stop the second they find something that contradicts it.
Yeah, they got nothing.
We're coming back. Johnny,
Okay.
you and I were just talking in the break about the kind of like you watching the Good Liars, and they had this guy ask about. One of them asked a Trump fan with a CNN is fake news shirt, "What's fake?" They couldn't answer. That guy that was standing next to me in line at the Las Vegas Trump rally, who every question I asked, anything I asked him on a topic, if I asked him more than two questions about anything, his go-to answer was, "I really haven't looked into it." And one of the things we heard, and I appreciate you bringing it up, and this was during the break, I wanted people to hear this actually, was that you were saying they always talk about doing your own research. That's one of the
Yeah.
biggest phrases in Trump world. Do your own research, right? And which sounds innocuous enough, but a
Sure.
little
Yeah. It sounds
learning
like,
being
yeah,
a
look into
dangerous
it.
thing. Yeah. A little learning being a dangerous thing. What they do is they do just enough research to hear what they want to hear and stop. And so if you look at I mean, there is no better definition, I think, of the Joe Rogan experience than do
Yeah.
just enough reading and stop.
Yeah.
Stop
Yeah.
when it
Until it
starts to
starts to
push
contradict your point.
your preconceived notion. Right.
Yeah.
Once you reach the edge of the intellectual cul-de-sac you're in, it's like your mom told you not to play with the ball past the end of the street. You can play outside, but don't cross the street. That's the
Right.
rule.
And I'm
And
I'm
meant
here to tell you that
that's
it's it's okay. I'm sorry, Hal. It's
Yeah.
it's okay to not know things. It's
Right.
you ask me so many questions, and I genuinely don't know. I either haven't
Yeah.
heard about it, or I, you know, for whatever reason,
Yeah.
I don't know. But
You
the
don't drink
issue
from the
is,
fire hose of news like I do too. You know what I mean?
sure, yeah,
Right.
that's why I count on you, and a lot of
Yeah.
your viewers and listeners count on you for that too. Is for you to process it. But the thing is that they come out and they are so confident in absolute misstatements and accusations
Hmm.
that are they're dangerous things to say,
Right.
and they have nothing to back it up.
Yeah, well, and there, I mean, obviously, when someone does that, and that is ubiquitous in Trump world, and we see it on our side of the aisle sometimes with what I would call the slacktivists or the faux-gressives, that they'll if you push them too far on our side, what you'll see is an appeal to emotion. You'll see that a lot. You'll see people going, if you step past this line, you're hurting people emotionally, physically, words or violence, that kind of stuff. That's that's where the Dunning-Kruger effect or the sort of confirmation bias shows up on our side of the aisle, and it's pretty easy to
Yeah,
spot. On on the right in MAGA world, it's a first of all, it's a badge of honor, and it's ubiquitous to to believe what Trump says about something despite all the evidence to the contrary, right? And they don't have to do an appeal to emotion because the lack of empathy is a plus in their world. I mean, look at libertarian philosophy, where they're kind of just you can't make an omelet without breaking some eggs, and you're talking about the lives and livelihoods of regular people, right? There's a lot of that in the MAGA world that some people just got to go, and it's the only way they can say with a straight face, "Are you better off now than you were 4 years ago?" and say no,
yeah,
because the idea of us losing 1 million Americans, tens of thousands every month, is just something happens. You know,
yeah.
it just happens. That's how it works. And some people got to go, and you can't. They're not worth keeping. That's and they
Mr.
pride
Spock in
themselves
the
on it.
chat just said empathy is for suckers.
Yeah, well, that is precisely
Yeah,
what they think. That and
yeah.
by the way, it's interesting that on our side of the aisle, one of the things that we will do on the regular, because empathy is born of emotion and a connection to your fellow human beings, our side, even when we're using it genuinely, I would say in talking about, say, the Sandy Hook stuff with Alex Jones, an appeal to emotion is a genuine reason for that, because the we're talking about parents whose hearts were broken by the killing of their children, and Alex Jones sending his foot soldiers to urinate on their graves. And then him wondering, what's the big deal? Why can't they just take $5 million and I'll just keep doing my show? Can I just pay
This
them
is
off?
never about justice. They want to end me. It's more than that, sir.
Oh, it's yeah. Well, I mean, look, can we just settle the Alex Jones thing once and for all? Um, with a tool that he has crafted himself, the wonderful hammer of paranoia. Hey, maggots and Alex Jones fans, Infowars fans, let me ask you a question. If any of what Alex Jones has been saying for all these years is true, how is he still alive?
Yeah.
That makes no sense. And there's only two reasons why
Is that because of
they would,
everybody
if
who's out to get him?
well, that's the thing. Yeah, yeah, yeah. If the Illuminati, lizard people, cabal, whatever you want to
Yeah.
call it, is running things. If they're really running things, there would only be two reasons why they would let somebody like him, who supposedly talks openly about what's going on, um, live, survive, keep doing what they're doing. The first one, obviously, is that he's so wrong that he's distracting away from what they're really doing. Like, this
Yeah.
guy's theory is so nutty. He's got everybody out in the parking lot staring at the moon, and we're digging a tunnel from this building to the next one to rob the bank, right? You know what I mean? Like, he's so off the mark and so
Yeah.
stupid. It's perfect. He keeps the very people who might be, because of their paranoid reflex and their free time, able to dig into things. They spend a lot of time being online sleuths. They might figure out what we're up to. But thank God, Alex Jones, this dopey, bloated um, ED pill salesman, is keeping them running around in circles in the desert, thinking Area 51 houses, alien toenails. That's one possibility, that he's a useful idiot for the Illuminati. Like they're like he's so
Yeah.
great at making everybody look the other way. He's perfect. It's like people have gotten tired in a magician act of looking at a beautiful woman as the distraction for the trick. So what we've decided to do is send out Donald Trump in a bikini, and you can't take your eyes off of him like a train wreck or a dog taking a crap. It's riveting. And so in this, that's the one possibility. The other possibility is, and this one goes directly out to those InfoWars fans who are worried that it's going to be taken off the air and worried that it's going to go away. The only other possibility is that he works for them. He's not doing it accidentally. Again, this is on the premise that everything he says is true. If he's not a screw up they're taking advantage of, that they're allowing to be around because he's a distraction, they're paying him to tell you this crap on purpose. They're allowing him to make a living on the hump of your idiocy.
Yeah.
It's the only I don't know another reasonable possibility if what he's saying is at all true. There is no other reason why he would be alive, that he wouldn't have Prigozhined a long time ago, right?
Right.
Those people. I mean, if the Russians do this to their own, imagine what the Illuminati, who allegedly controls the Russians and everybody, does. Right? It's absurd. So
I am so tired of doing what the Illuminati says, Hal.
I know.
It's
You
exhausting.
mean like democracy and reading and all the things of the Enlightenment that built Western culture?
Yeah, it's so old.
Yeah, it's part of the New World Order. I mean, this is always my other question for those folks. What's if they're working on a New World Order? What was the old World Order? Because like George W. Bush, H.W. Bush was talking about it. And all that. Okay, what's the New World Order? The New World Order is the alignment of democracies, self-governing peoples who choose their leaders. So, and you only know what the New World Order is if you know what the Old World Order was, and that was monarchies, theocracies, and
Yeah.
dictatorships, right? That's
Yeah.
what the Old World Order was. And if they wanted land from each other, they killed each other over it. They didn't have, they set up some trade, but that lasts about 100 years max, and then they'd start killing each other again, and everybody got tired of it. That's what democracies are for. So the New World Order would be an alliance of countries where the people pick their leaders to represent who they are for real. And if they step off, into the darkness like the Nazis did, that's part and parcel to dealing with that for real. But at least it's some version of the will of the people instead of just some, Stalin-esque overt seizure of control, right? So,
Yep.
so it's supposedly it's coming in the next week or so that Infowars is being liquidated and sold for parts. Now, am I going to buy the desk? I think is the question everybody wants to
Oh,
know. And if I can, I will. I don't know when the sale would be. There's some sort of an auction. There's only so much I'll pay for it because I like the. I don't want to drive up the price so it gets him off the hook. You know what I mean? I would
where
rather
did
Sandy
Rush
Hook.
Limbaugh's gold microphone go?
I think they buried it with him, right next to a bag of 30,000 oxycodones, and a receipt for cleaning services, and a lock of Consuela's hair.
Poor Consuela.
Poor Consuela, she gets yeah. The and by the way, and his passport with all of his stamps for his trips to Haiti, where he was known for flying down there with bags of painkillers and Viagra. you know, what's it called? Family values. That's right. That's what it's called. So, I want everybody in the audience, though, to sort of listen in total to what I've been talking about today in terms of Project 2025. The idea that the storyline that the Trumpies are telling about Joe Biden, or and how they've stopped talking about Donald Trump in terms of the best words. When's the last time You even heard somebody say he speaks like us. Think of the Good Liars things. It's a good example.
Yeah.
Think of all the Good Liars stuff you've seen. We used to see this all the time. The primary sale point for Donald Trump, and I'm sure there's some people who still do it out of knee jerk reaction, right? But that's dropped off precipitously in the
He
last
does
three
not speak
years.
like anyone else.
No, he does not. And that's telling. Think about that. And I'm curious, chat room, if you're in there, by the way, hit the like and subscribe, share the show out. It's the House Parks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Don't forget here, we're every weekend with Johnny Million, and Philip Bittner will be joining us in the second hour if he has power, because they have power outages in Kiev right now, but he's got a battery backup and we should be okay, but fingers crossed. But I want everybody to think about that. When's the last time you heard them say this about him? We'll be back. Mm-hmm. 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 Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, that like while we were talking about it, that just occurred to me because I used to see that all the time at his rallies. Like that was at least
Yeah.
if they were interviewing people in the line, like Brian Glenn, MTG's main squeeze that we know of, all those people, they would be interviewing these folks, and it would always be somebody would always get around to he talks just like us, right? Somebody would eventually say, and now I don't see it at all. Thank you, Karen. And I mean, it's telling. It's very telling. And Kitty K says cruelty is the point. I agree. That goes towards our kind of empathy conversation
Yeah.
that we had, um, we were having earlier. But there's, like I said, the publication of 2025. Thank you. The publication of Project 2025 in and of itself is a good sign for our side of the aisle because they wouldn't have to publish it if Donald Trump had all the best words, had it memorized, and could do it because he
Oh,
knows all the best people and the best things. They had to, yeah, they had to give him an IKEA manual and an Allen wrench. Coming back in a couple seconds.
okay.
He's doing quick promo.
Okay.
He killed it. I mean, that's one of my favorite promos. At WCPT, we look forward to seeing everybody in August as Sexy Liberal comes to the Vic, and
Oh,
Nerd Halen will be playing the night before. And it's going to be so
gonna be
choice, such a
easy.
choice weekend. I'm so excited about it. By the way, in Denver tomorrow night, Nerd Halen is playing Denver HQ here in town. So anybody who's coming to the show, spread the word on all the Steph chat rooms and all that kind of stuff to let people know they can hop over and see us play. So that we don't, so that the other guys in the band can not break even on the trip. I get to piggyback on another show, you know, so I can kind of prorate the costs of my travel and all that kind of stuff to both gigs. But this is their one and done. So tell everybody in the area and help us out. That said, and again, Philip Bittner will be joining us in just a minute. But there has been, I'm going to cover. By the way, some people have been asking, will I be covering the live debate? Um, I'm of two minds about it because I would
Mm,
like people to watch it sort of unexpurgated because I do a stop start. I don't talk over people,
yeah.
and so I'd rather watch it and then comment on it afterwards. So more than likely, what I will do is a hot replay right after it's done. So I will watch it myself, and then I'll go online after it's over and start up from the top, and we'll go through it bit by bit and have our bit of fun, and dive into it. And I'll of course be live tweeting it and that kind of stuff, and whatever variation of that goes on, or live discording it if you're in the Discord. We'll set up a little uh, like campaign 2024 talking room where we can all kind of jump in and discuss this stuff. And yeah, I think it's incredibly important that people watch it this Thursday. I do believe I'm very confident in Biden's ability to to debate. I don't think he's lost a step anywhere in that regard. There are areas where at his age, probably the biggest problem he has is the schedule, is all day, every day, 3 a.m. phone call stuff that they're, you got to be concerned with. And they genuinely are having 3 a.m. phone calls because they're talking to people across the world and it's him. He's got to speak to a world leader. And so they got to schedule part of your day. Like, you need to take a nap this afternoon because you got an hour long conversation with, some people in Qatar at 4 o'clock in the morning, right? Those kind of things, so that we can get this done by this deadline and that have you and what have you. So there's going to be a bunch of that. And I mean, the amount of public events and stuff that he had over the G7 and flying back and forth and that kind of stuff is going to make everybody jet lagged. I don't care who you are. But even at the big Hollywood event where they did the Obama led him off. Okay, Obama led him
Mm.
off because he wasn't going to leave. He wanted to stay. He was still talking to people, and they had to go take pictures with Julia Roberts and George Clooney backstage, and they were going to leave. So like, we got to do this part, Joe. It's time to go. So he comes over, grabs his thing, he goes, I know you want to stay there all night, but this is part of it. You got to keep on schedule, buddy. That's why Biden has this thing about going, they're going to kill me if I answer another question or whatever. What he means is his
Yeah.
staff, because they have presidenting to
Yeah.
do. They have actual stuff to do. Last week at that at the I don't know, the what do they call what's a black and white, like the cow drink or whatever, the the black cow, I think it's called, but it's a black and
Oh,
white
yeah.
um, coffee. At the is mostly white though. I would say it's sort of a latte, a one shot latte.
That's the way I like
Uh,
it, mostly white.
Gotcha. So that's at the quote unquote black church that Trump went to. He opened it up with saying, "Well, we're here," and they said, "You got to go here." And I'm like, "Well, here I am, and we're here." And
Mm.
if if Biden said they told me I had to come here at a black church for one, even if it was
Right?
full of white people, the right wing would go bananas. They would milk that for 6 months. But because Trump said it, doesn't matter. And because we don't have an issue with that. Like, we know that any competent executive even has a staff that keeps them on schedule, or has a schedule that is either set by their clock. I don't care if you're one of these people who has the trying to find the perfect morning routine YouTube channel, or you're the equalizer.
Yeah.
You're on the clock, right? And sometimes you think killing all the Russian guys in the weird restaurant thing is going to take you 19 seconds, and it takes 28. But it's only because you pause to look into the eyes of a couple of the bad guys, right? That's what we know at this point, right? But in this particular case, Trump literally said the thing that they accuse Biden of saying all the time, but it was worse because Biden's stuff is about schedule. He never says, "I was told I have to be here to talk to you guys, to this group. I was told that I needed to speak to you if I want to raise money, grow voters, whatever. I have to," right? Because it's there. There is he'll come out and go, "All right, if I take another question, they're going to kill me." And what he means is his staff is going to go, "Sir, we got to be at this thing at 3 o'clock," and the whatever the prime minister of Wachamahundi is standing in the alcove over here waiting for his 2 minutes because nobody knows where his country is, and he thinks he's embarrassed to even be here, and you promised to talk to him, right? And
Yeah.
that's fine. That's how it should be if you want a productive, well-run government. So that brings us to the Republicans and Clarence Thomas and his rulings about stuff. Do they want a productive, well-run government? And the only possible um, conclusion you can draw from the last, decade is no,
Yeah.
no. Everybody that they put
They
on
say
the
it out
Supreme Court
loud.
is there to gut the actual voters' input on law. That's what they're there for. Now, put aside the idea that it's conservative ideas, right wing versus left wing, even in that regard, and understand what
Yeah.
they're there to do is remove the voters, period,
Yeah.
from the legal structure of the United States. Understand that because there will be times. I mean, this is how the weird part is, this is how you get to surveillance state. This is how you get to all the things that they allegedly fear, is you allow the Supreme Court to go, well, if they can look in your window because the drapes are open, they can look through, if they have a device that looks through the drapes and you don't know, you're not, and they posted on a website at the bottom of a page, 75 pages deep that says, by the way, we're allowed to look through your see-through curtains, which are any curtains, / we can see through your walls and we can read your hard drive through the plugs in your, the electrical plugs in your house. And if you didn't read
Hmm.
that, it's not their fault. You could just do it. That's how you get to that ridiculous place that they're all claiming is right around the corner or is already here. You get there with a Supreme Court that overrides the will of the voter and threads the law in an authoritarian way. So they get what they want. And so the voter has no input. They basically just bat down anything the voter wants to say to change the law to better society or save lives, any of that stuff. They can, they can act as sort of like, um, I, like sort of like an island in this regard. Now, the Republican Party
Hmm.
is more than happy to queue up people like that in both the federal bench and in the SCOTUS, but they'll do it themselves. If for some reason the SCOTUS is stuck because there's too many liberals on there to get a pushback on this, or one of the conservative justices isn't all in on this stuff yet until they can put somebody nuttier than Amy Coney Barrett on next time. If they can't do it and they have to punt it back to the House, what does the House have to do? Do they have to pass a law to fix the thing so that freedom stays free and the Second Amendment stays safe from intrusion by the left wing? No, they just have to stop any changes because there are none. We've got the conservative movement used to be the brakes. Now, in a car, when you're driving a vehicle, if you're all brake or all gas, you're either not going to go anywhere and you're going to die of starvation, or you're going to crash because you have no control.
Yeah.
There's a value in a diligent use of both. That's aware of the circumstances and the surrounding, and you know that sometimes, as Jonathan Winters would say about a station wagon, you got to gun that mother and see what it's got. But then other times, there's clearly a stop sign ahead, a lot of traffic, and you want to tap the brakes a little bit and ease the car to a stop in this situation so that we don't run into traffic and get obliterated. That used to be the tug and pull between liberal and conservative in this country. Now, conservatives have gone from like just riding the parking brake to erecting speed bumps that are full on walls. And again, what could be easier to sell to your voters? I made sure nothing was done. That's what Donald Trump said about guns.
Yeah.
He told the people of Iowa right after a school shooting, you just have to get over it. You just got to you just got to get over it. You just got to. Sorry.
It's just gonna
You just got
happen.
to. It's just part of the deal. We're going to have lunatics get these things and have, 30 round magazines, and they're going to be able to shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot, and nobody's going to have a chance to jump them before as they reload because they hardly ever have to. Boston Brian, thank you so much, brother. Um, so all they have to do, in theory, is stop the liberal takeover of blah blah blah. So what's our answer in that situation? What do we do then? What's our sales point? We point to all the normal things, and they go, all they wanted to do was stop this. They wanted to stop infrastructure. It wasn't that Donald Trump couldn't get an infrastructure bill passed or that he failed to get an infrastructure bill passed. Is that Republicans don't want solid infrastructure in the United States because it means people from their own red states are competing with their businesses that are largely in blue states. That's why. We got to stop looking with the Project 2025 stuff as, Trump failed to do these things and start looking at them as they are a party of obstruction because they have no ideas and they know that they are, political dinosaurs, and they're trying to turn their weakness into a strength. That's it. We got to take a break. After we come back, Philip Bittner will be joining us from Kiev, and
Is this powered
hopefully
back
he's
on
got.
already?
I don't know. We'll hope so. We're keeping our
No,
fingers
we'll
crossed,
see.
but yep. And I believe he has the proper link. Yes. Hold on, just make sure he's in the right place. So hold on, I got to do that during the break. But we'll be
Okay.
back right after this. Put this away. Yeah. So I'll send him that link in. Let's see. I'll send it to Andrea. I'm going to send it to you in the Discord, and hopefully you can punt it over to him. That'd be great. Don't switch. Go away. There you go. Yeah, we're on Ecamm today. It's the one that works the best on the road right now for whatever reason. I think it has something to do with this crisscross between OBS and M1, M2 Max. Hopefully
Crisscross
that'll be
applesauce.
remedied.
I'll be right back.
Uh-oh. Gotta see a man about a mule. And hi, chat room. Let me jump in here with you guys. Thank you for the gifted subs. That was lovely. And hold on. Whoops. Let me jump in here. Oops. Again, it scrolls so fast. Because there's a specific reason, chat room, why I'm bringing this up. Because there are certain arguments that will get through to people, especially on our side of the aisle, right? Well, you can reach people that are like-minded or even close or on the border. But I often run into this when I'm doing stand-up. When I don't do the sexy liberal comedy tour, when I'm just doing my regular stand-up, my stuff is not per se political. It is what I would call socio-political because I think that's the root of the tree. And if there's rotten fruit, it comes from the root. So in that instance, I try to deal with those misgivings and those bad assumptions and sociologically mixed up cul-de-sacs that people get in, and try to deal with that and make fun of that, joke about that. Again, it goes to the sort of Bush bit where I recognize that if I mentioned George Bush during his administration, certain people's ears would close. But if I did this bit about anybody who wears a cowboy hat and is afraid of cows, it's an asshole hat. It was basically the premise. Right? It's not a cowboy hat. It doesn't qualify on it. First of all, you're an old man. It's like being boys in the hood when you're in your mid 60s. So simmer down.
Hand brush to clear.
He did have brush to clear. He was always clearing brush. Wait, wasn't that? Yeah, that was something he borrowed from Reagan, because Reagan
Oh,
would actually
really?
interact with
Brush clearing?
his animals. Yeah, yeah. It was again, nothing's original. Everything's a reboot with these idiots. But the point being is that I could get to those people, and even if I never mentioned his name, the next time they saw George Bush clear and brush with his cowboy hat on, and they were like, "Yeah, that guy was talking about him, and he's afraid of cows." What a weird thing. They couldn't hang on to it as well. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So there's a way around that. And one of the things about, like, they can't believe Trump is a failure. They believe everything he does is on purpose, even when he screws up. Kofifi
Yeah.
was on purpose, right? All that
Oh,
stuff.
he's just messing with your
Well,
mind.
yeah, he's got a super take on stuff, and he just he's it's fifth dimensional Spock chess and all that stuff. All right. Well, fine then. If you want to believe he does everything on purpose, then I will point to the things he screwed up on purpose. And so, if you want to tell me that COVID, was intentionally made in a lab, and the Chinese intentionally leaked it, intentionally to attack America, then Donald Trump was president during the worst biological attack in the history of America, and his response was to sell the people who did it the largest order of pork, corn, soybeans, and beef in our nation's history while Americans were in food lines. And he did it on purpose. It wasn't an accident. He didn't get suckered. It wasn't because Xi Jinping was, outsmarted
Oh,
him.
wait,
It's
wait, wait. Hal,
because,
Hal,
yeah.
I know the answer.
Hmm.
Fake news. Eh?
No, but I'm taking it's their argument.
I know,
They're the
but
ones saying
like,
this, right?
but the facts
I
of
guess
what really
no matter
happened are
what.
fake. Yeah.
Yeah, in case of in case of emergency, break glass. Okay, cool.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
Phil is. I don't see Phil in the interview thing quite yet, but we got plenty of stuff to cover, so that's okay. We'll bring this. I'm gonna check and make sure he's not in our other room real quick. If I would,
Like,
there we go. hmm It happens. It can
yeah,
it can happen.
it could happen to you. It could happen to me.
Radio's coming back
It could
in. They're playing
happen
the
to everyone
jingle.
eventually. Oh, okay. No more yes. Man, the chat's
So
flying by like a rotary sander.
yeah, there's a lot of people in the chat today, and it's because they like and share the show. They're very smart about that. And if you hit that like, whatever site you're watching it on, or even by the way, hit the dislike. I don't want to. What in the world was that? Is that Johnny?
It wasn't my butt.
Oh, there he is. Phil's. Oh, Phil's, and
Yeah, I think I
he's in
hear
the
Phil.
other
I
chat.
think I hear.
He is.
I hear
You
Phil.
do. Oh,
Yeah.
don't. What? He's Phil's in the old room. So hold on.
Okay.
Let me let me see if I can bring. Well, the problem is, yeah, you have to come into the eCam because I won't be able to hear you. The stream won't be able to hear you.
Yeah, 'cause we can't hear
You
Chicago.
gotta come in the link that Andrea just gave you. So hang up and call back, and we'll bring you in. Excellent. So Phil will be with us in just one second. I'm glad he's got power and all that kind of stuff. They've been having blackouts there, which is maybe they're having them there because Trump didn't have them at the church he was in. But
Ah,
wah, 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 wah. Um,
I see what you did there.
all of these things, yeah, all of these things that where they can't believe Trump is a failure because he's incapable of failing. Then the only call is that he did all this stuff on purpose.
Yeah.
And and the other thing I guess we should all celebrate is the huge amount of infighting going on in Trump world right now.
There's a bit of
Because
that.
right now, okay, so here's a mild example. People are familiar with Lauren Boebert. She's the closest thing to we have to a Kardashian. There's Phil in the background. I'll bring him in just one second.
Yeah.
Bring him up on the yeah. He'll be with us in just one moment. And lost him for a second. Okay, he'll call back. That he just endorsed Lauren Boebert. Donald Trump did, and the response from even the MAGA faithful was to call her gutter trash.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow.
um, yeah. There are. I think Democrats have like two contentious primaries going on right now. And there he is. I think he's joining us. Okay, excellent. There we go. And I'm going to bring him in and put him in there. There he is. There's Phil. How are you, sir? Good to have you with
Hello.
us. Can you hear us? Can you hear everybody? You should be able to. So hopefully we'll get you in here.
Okay.
Not quite.
Can't hear you.
He's. You can or you cannot. We're sending you audio because Johnny can hear me, so you'll hear me. So
Uh,
okay, we'll work on that for 1 second. Hello, check, check. Give us a thumbs up when you
course.
hear. Yeah, yeah. And we'll bring him in. Don't worry. It's always something. There you go.
Sandra,
We'll
Sandra,
try and bring him
Sandra.
in because we can hear Phil. We do hear you,
Yep.
Phil. So hold on. We'll let him know that we go. We hear you, Phil. This is always fun. Um, there you go. Um, hopefully he can see that. And the little chat came up to let him know we hear him, but he cannot hear us, and I'm not quite sure why. But that's on his end. That will have to be solved on his end of things. That's in his ear. Oh, and he just went away. Okay, so that might
Oh,
again. The man is piping in from a war zone where they
yep.
have intermittent power right now. We're going to be completely forgiving about the circumstance
Magic.
where Phil is joining us today. So he'll be with us hopefully in just 1 second. He might have had to restart his setup, which is completely understandable. Um, I had an issue with that this week, and boy, was that fun. That was a joy. So that's it. So Lauren Boebert used to be. I got to tell you, like, remember? Let's go back. Let's go back in the Wayback Machine to
Okay.
the talking points of last fall, before McCarthy is punted, before Marjorie Taylor Greene oddly sides with him and gets into a shouting match with Marjorie Taylor Greene or with Lauren Boebert, wherein she calls her a little bee on the floor, and it gets her kicked out of the. There you go. Can you hear us, sir? Can you hear us, Phil?
I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Excellent. We hear you. Yes,
Yes.
we can. Excellent. Welcome,
Hey,
sir. Philip, I was just bringing, like, we're going back into the Wayback Machine, and this kind of applies to our conversation about Ukraine as well. The talking points about it that we all dealt with for the last couple of years, where this is the end of this. I mean, come on, man, there's no way that they can do any. The Ukrainians are done for, or Russia's beaten the sanctions. Remember that one? Remember the end of the petrodollar? We're on like version 16 of that nonsense, and even still, you've got this idea that that Democrats are split over a bunch of issues, be it Gaza or something like that, and the Republicans are unified. Meanwhile, everywhere we look, all last fall, right before McCarthy was ousted. By the way, for his kind of tacit belief that we should pass the military budget for the country, even though it had Ukraine funding that they were against. The rest of them wanted to Tommy Tuberville this stuff just to attack Ukraine, which I find very suspect,
Mm.
incredibly suspect. It makes zero sense on the margins. Um, but then, and then it
well,
all
I
falls
mean,
apart. Now, yeah, good.
what bothers me about all of it is that there is this kind of anxiety that leads to um, a defeatism. Um,
Yeah.
and I see it in the states. I see it in the states, and I see it in the conflict in Ukraine. It's like, oh, we're gonna lose. It's gonna be so terrible. Oh, it's an
Mm,
inevitability that X, Y,
sure.
or Z is going to lead to defeat. And, from my perspective here in Ukraine, it's like, no. If you give them the weapons, they'll beat Russia. There's no
Yep.
question. If you give them the means to do it,
Mm,
they'll win. Not a doubt in my mind. And then I see it domestically in the states with like, oh, these aggressive loudmouths
mm,
who are, we're um, it's this sense of an inevitability of defeat, this anxiety that um,
mm.
leads to, oh, we're definitely gonna, oh, it's all gonna go bad. It's all gonna go bad.
Right.
Um, which
But it's not based on anything.
becomes
And that's
becomes a no, it becomes a self fulfilling. It becomes a self
mm,
fulfilling prophecy,
fulfilling prophecy. Right.
and it's
Well,
not
that's
true. We can beat
okay.
Trump. We can beat Trump. We
Yeah.
can beat Russia. We can
Yeah.
decide to do it and effing make it
Yeah.
happen.
Yep. Agree. Well, and we are. That's the other part. And again, this goes to it. If we just give them what they need, they can do that. Well, you know that, and I know that, and anybody who's ever had a security briefing in the Congress or the Senate or the White House or in or has Ted Cruz whispering things to them, at the Heritage Foundation, they know this as well, right? They know this. So the only other answer is they're not mistaken. This isn't a failure. They're doing it on purpose. They are oddly, again, it is shockingly bizarre.
When it comes to the election or when it comes to Ukraine or
Both.
both.
Yeah,
Yeah,
both.
yeah, 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 yeah. I mean, it's this kind of like we're gonna set a little box, and you're gonna be crazy about it, and you're gonna get all anxious and um, have self doubt, and no, no, we're going to beat Trump and we're going to beat the
Yep.
Russians. Yeah,
That's right.
that's it. That's all there is to it.
Done.
We
I agree.
decide to do it.
Yep.
Decide to do it, and then do it. This this and I do see it in the United States, and it troubles me more than it troubles me here, because I spend time with Ukrainians, and the Ukrainians are like, we're going to fight. Yeah, we're going to fight.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're going to fight. Yeah, the Russians are going to come. We're going to fight. Yeah,
Yep.
and ultimately we will die before we accept defeat. This mentality of
Right.
like, and I see it here so much more pronounced than I do in the West. Of this, like, well, okay, all right, well, whatever happens is going to happen, but we're not going to bend the knee. We're not going to uh, accept surrender. Uh, we're going to fight or die.
That's
And
right.
I see that lacking. I see that lacking in the United States, and I see that lacking in the West's support of Ukraine. And it's the same disease, in my opinion. And that is
Right.
decide what do you believe in? What do you believe in? What is important to you?
For
And what
real.
do you believe in? And then, yeah, for real, not like
Hmm.
this is my. Yeah, I like the latest Star Wars. It's good, or I
Hmm.
don't like it. It's bad, or whatever like little cultural thing. No, no. This is like, how do you want to live your life? How do you want your children to live their lives? And when it comes right down to it, it's, well, okay, then we have to decide to defeat these people,
Yep.
and
And that
we
takes
can't
commitment.
give
And that
them,
takes,
and it takes
right.
commitment, and then we can't, and we cannot empower them by being afraid of them. We have to
Yeah.
decide to fight, and
Hmm.
I, this is why it's so humbling to be in Ukraine, because this is where the rubber meets the road.
Yeah.
These people have said, no, you know what? No, no, we're not going to do that. We're gonna fight.
Right.
We're going to stand up. We will die. We will resist. We will do whatever it takes. Um, and I don't see that same commitment in the West. And I'm not being hypercritical of the West. I'm just saying we have to come to a place where we resolve ourselves to, you know what? We don't want Trump. We don't want Trump. We don't want the Russians. We
Yeah.
don't want this
We don't want to live like
way
that.
of life,
And we don't
and
want the, and,
we don't want to live
yeah,
like that.
we don't want the people in our families and our loved ones and our friends to live under that. And so it cannot be allowed to go forward in that regard, and especially where we have a chance to do something about it, especially something, when Ukraine people are fighting for their lives in the same process. Over here, all people have to do is show up and vote. That's all they have to do. The Democrats outnumber the Republicans, have for years. If every Democrat showed up, every red state would be, if it didn't turn purple or blue, it would start to look oddly maroon and scare the crap out of Republicans. And they know this. We have to take a break. When we come back, we've got a couple of super chats asking a couple questions, and I know Johnny Million has some questions that are going to start stacking in there. So we'll be back right after this. Thanks so much. It's the Housemarks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. And we're clear. Berkeley Dowd, thank you so much. Thank you, Karen and Catherine. Jerry Cummings, thank you so much for the super chat and the Slava Ukraine. And Carolina Childers, thank you so much. Can't wait for the debate. Me too. I'm excited. Um, Betsy says
Johnny, where
Alex
are
is.
you, buddy?
He's
You're
at a
in
Ren
town
fair.
I
from
had I
somewhere.
had fun storming the castle.
You think it'll take it? It'll take a miracle. Bye bye.
It's a,
I put him there.
I'm expecting a corpse like to float by any minute
Hmm.
in
Hmm.
like some sort of Roman catacomb.
That's right.
Cal has
And
put me in a dungeon.
that's right. Yes. And thank you, Betsy says Alex's desk won't fit in the basement, but buy it anyways. It would definitely not fit in my office at all, but it would be hilarious. Um, um,
Oh,
Thank you, Arizona Sunflowers. Thank you so much for the super sticker. Mendy, thank you, and Erica, thank you so much for the desk fund. Yes, you can contribute to support the show through patreon.com/HalSparks. You can also, there's a little Venmo thing above our head right there on the live stream if you use that service. Or you can super chat us. You can send, I think you can send stars on Facebook right now. They're being oddly weird with their payout stuff right now. It seems like they're just teeing themselves up for a class action lawsuit. I'm just saying,
Who's being
they're
weird with
kind
the
of messing.
payouts?
Facebook. Facebook has
Oh
been
yeah, I don't deal with
s-
them.
well,
YouTube is
that's why.
great. Twitch is great.
Yeah, but Facebook is intermittent. Sometimes what they your system works and sometimes it doesn't, and there's no reasoning behind it, which means they have the ability to turn off your funds with a switch whenever they want to, and they can just claim ignorance and not let anybody look. That's why I think it's going to turn into something. They're going to stack up. There's going to be a
Mm.
bunch of mad creators at some point that do something about it, but that's a tale for another day. And right now, Philip Ittner is joining us. He's the host of On the Edge, his new podcast that they
Yeah.
put up a fresh one every Sunday, I believe. Is that the
hmm
current schedule? Yes, Rayleigh.
every
And
Sunday at 9 o'clock Pacific time. Tomorrow will be Bill Browder, who is
great,
the head of Hermitage Capital Investment, and he, more importantly, is the champion for the Magnitsky Law, which is the
right.
international law which fights against. I'm sorry, yes, Bill Browder. So yeah, Bill Browder. My bad. Uh,
Yeah,
anyhow, Bill is the creator. He's the architect of the Magnitsky Law, and that law has been applied to autocracies around the globe to basically be like if you benefit financially from autocracy and from oppression that uh, you don't work in the global economic system. And it is
right.
a major thorn in Vladimir Putin's side. And we talk about a whole bunch of stuff. And
Mhm.
so, yeah, it's another good episode,
For
and
the
we keep putting them
if
out.
I may, if I may, to describe to any maggots that are listening or anybody in the Magnitsky Act, think of it as the Cincinnati anti adult magazine law. You don't want the adult magazines on the shelf right next to the cereal and the food and the and Motor Trend and energy drinks and snacks and all that kind of stuff. That doesn't get to share shelf space with all the stuff that people normally buy. You can create your little underground way of buying and selling it, but it doesn't get to share that shelf space. And this would be a version of that, but instead of it being magazines or something in the old Cincinnati Larry Flint case, it's drugs, human trafficking, and gun running, and the machine of murder that say Russia and some other countries engage in internationally, and those
Now,
people that seek to make money off of it or support it.
yeah,
So,
and this kind of fund, this kind of flow of funds should not be on the international stage. This
yeah,
is what Bill proposed with the Magnitsky Act because his lawyer was killed by Vladimir Putin. We talk about that. We talk about so much more. Um, and it's a really good conversation, and uh, we actually had it. He was kind enough to give me a good hour of his time for a conversation about this, but it happened about 5 days before unexpectedly he was knighted. King Charles III
mm,
gave him a knighthood, so he is now
no.
Sir Bill Browder. So I don't refer to him as Sir
So
Bill.
are you telling me? Yeah, but you could have a sir story like Donald Trump if you wanted one. Only it would be true. Sir, big powerful
Yeah,
general, wrote a
so big
law,
comes to
came up to
me,
me,
says,
strong guy,
yeah,
tears in his
yeah,
eyes, tears
yeah.
in his eyes, I
I,
guess,
I
as he
think we're
lines
gonna.
up this
I
putt.
think we're gonna. I think we're gonna have to wait for some time before um, The king is giving a knighthood to Donald Trump, so I can safely avoid saying Sir Donald, but I'm pretty happy to say Sir Bill because Bill Browder has been
Yeah.
doing exceptional work. Exceptional work. I mean, I knew Bill. Well, I knew of Bill in the late '90s, and then I've
Hmm.
interacted with him now and again over the last like 20 years, and this is a guy who his lawyer found criminality in the Kremlin, and he
Yeah.
exposed it, and because of it, he was killed. He was killed.
Yeah.
He was no two ways around it. He was put in a Russian prison, and he was killed. And instead of like walking away and washing his hands clean of it, Browder, did the opposite, and
Hmm.
he has been a champion for anti-autocracy, notably, obviously Russian, but other autocracies as well, for 30 years. And it
Hmm.
was a fascinating conversation. It's great that we got it on tape, um, even before he became a knight.
Hmm.
But and we'll be putting it out as we will be doing every Sunday. Sunday at 9 a.m. California time, 7 p.m. Kiev time. We'll be putting out an episode on the edge, talking about stuff that really matters. This does matter, and we're not doing it um,
Hmm.
with just a surface level conversation. This thing with Bill, and then next week, we have another great conversation already in the can, but we'll edit it. Um,
Hmm.
these conversations are important because they really
Yeah.
delve into the fact that this isn't just, I mean, of course it's Trump. Of course it's autocracy in the United States, but it is a
Yeah.
global movement towards
Hmm.
autocracy that those who resist it need to have a very serious conversation about. And we talk about Putin as an example of this push towards autocracy. And
Hmm.
it's if
Yeah.
if we don't consciously decide to resist it, it will succeed. We have to stand up and say no. We don't want things to go this way, and that's what On the Edge is
Right.
all about. So
Great.
um,
I
the,
we look
the the
forward to
the
it.
interview with Bill Browder is fantastic.
Excellent. Well, I want to make sure we get into questions that we have from our chat, but I also want to thank Boston Brian and Susan and Chris for their Venmos as well, supporting the show. Thank you so much. And to all our patrons for making the show possible on the regular. You're the backbone of everything. Really appreciate it. When the ebb and flow of super chats goes through its tides, you guys are the ones that keep us consistently here, and I can't thank you enough. And on top of that, there are a couple of pieces of news I want to bring to everybody's attention, and then we'll get to the questions.
Mm.
One being that the one is there is a fire that has been burning in Azov, which is a Russian town in Rostov Oblast, that has been burning for 3 days from a drone strike on a an oil depot. It's still on fire from 3 days ago. This enormous Russian processing plant, it's a refinery and it's a transition point for some of their liquid petroleum, their LPG. Um, and it caught fire 3 days ago from this drone strike, and it is still burning 3 days later. And if you'll notice, remember when the Nord Stream was hit, and everybody was like, "Not all. Look at all the lefties who allegedly care about the environment, but this is the biggest environmental attack on civilian infrastructure in the history." Blah blah blah. Okay, never mind that was the Russians blowing up their own pipeline to vent the gas out of a pipeline that wasn't going anywhere, and they couldn't release it back into the country because there was nobody left in the country that knew how to run the stuff, or the factory would have blown up. The actual processing plant on their side would have blown up if they tried to release the gas back into the system. So they just blew it up and let it leak. But this is equal to or greater than any of that. The environmental impact of this is terrible, but you're not hearing
Well,
any of this
no,
because it
I
admits the
mean, if
weakness.
you really want to, if you really want to talk about economic or ecological impact, as bad as whatever happened with Nord Stream, I mean, the Kakhovka Dam is the
Right.
worst
Oh yeah.
ecological disaster, which was indisputably a Russian thing. They blew up a dam, which then flooded uh, entire sections of southern Europe with
Right.
damage from silt, from lives,
Hmm.
from fish, from just everything that came
Right.
out, and then nobody talks about that. No, sure,
Yep. Nope.
that was
Bec-
definitely the Russians.
Right. Well, and then on top of that, the EU has just closed their airspace to Russian business aircraft. They've shut off some of their regular corporate flights, but they've also shut these off. We got to take a break. We're right at the heartbreak in the middle, but when we come back, we're going to take some of your questions. And I just wanted to sort of introduce those, and I want to hear from Phil about the Kaspersky Labs sanction on the other side of this because it's a rather big thing that affects a lot of households in the
We
United
should
States,
talk
and it's
about Korea,
about
and we should
time.
also talk
Yeah,
about
and
Korea.
North Korea, absolutely. We'll have questions about that. We'll be right back. It's the House Parts Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Dude, I
Yeah, I
like
had a double
the
handful of questions in the chat about Korea.
great, great. Okay,
I
that'll work.
bet.
And it's really just like, what about North Korea? Is North Korea arming the Russians? All that kind of thing. So you'll
Mhm,
just speak on that.
Well, yeah.
mhm. There's an article, the title of which China's yuan will take over as Russia's main trade currency once and for all as U.S. sanctions get tighter. Think tank says, it's already happened. Really,
Yeah.
guys, you've been thinking about this,
And
have
so
you?
what?
Uh, yeah,
And so what? And so what?
their entire economy is less than what I forget. It was, I think we did the math on it. 11 Chick-fil-A's.
Hmm.
Yeah, somewhere in the order of like
Chick-
that. Yeah, like Chick-fil-A as a company, if there's 11 equivalent companies, that's why that's why the Chinese or like everybody says the Chinese are the second biggest economy in the world. They're not. They're equal to or about the same size as Japan, which is having a hard time, and they have way more people. Again, that's my pat of butter, slices of bread analogy, which I think I stand by to this day. And in this particular instance, they're going to spread this out over even like over the Russian people now. Please,
Hmm.
yeah, we're coming back. They're going to a couple of seconds. Um,
Where are you, Hal?
and we're back. I'm in Denver, Colorado today, city by the bay, with
Denver.
the Sexy Liberal Comedy Tour. Tonight, we're here in Denver, and then tomorrow night, Nerd Halen plays here as well. Then I am off to Los Angeles, where we do the Ultimate Jam Night on Tuesday. We are celebrating Pride, and the answer to your question is yes, of course, I'm doing a Cher song. And then on Wednesday, I have a Flapper show, which is free to all our Patreon supporters, and I live stream it to the Patreon site so they can watch it for free. It's a little extra goose to
Yeah.
tell them how much we appreciate it without putting what we talk about on the show behind a firewall or behind a paywall, rather, which I think is counterintuitive to the point of trying to get information out that you think is important to people's lives and livelihoods and their safety and their security and just their potential as human beings. Why would you take the news portion of your program of any sort? And I mean, I understand why you should subscribe to the Washington Post and all these sites because that's how they run because they've got reporters out there. But if you're I don't know, I'm speaking around in circles, but let's say you have a studio, say in Culver City, with like 9 employees, and you've been around for a long time, and you got seed money from a billionaire a long time ago, and that keeps you afloat anyways. Why would you put any of the show behind a paywall if what you're saying is important to the political turnout in the United States? I I don't get it. Anyways, we'll figure it out one day. So let's get to our questions, though, if I would, because we're going to talk about North Korea specifically. I think, Johnny, there were some questions about that right away.
Yeah, they were phrased as "What about North Korea?" and "Is North Korea arming
Sure.
Russia?"
Well, North Korea has been arming Russia for quite some time, which is
Hmm.
pathetic because they
Yeah.
have. Um, okay, so I wanted very much to talk about Korea, and Korea is a. I've covered Korea. I've been to Korea many times, and it's there's a um, there's an there's an arms race going on between North and South Korea, and it's artillery.
Hmm.
And so they are both
And there's a
mass
garbage
producers
fight,
of
too.
artillery running. Well,
Hmm.
there's all sorts of stuff, but they're both massive producers of artillery rounds. And the artillery stockpile that Vladimir Putin has gone to North Korea and said, hey, let's have your stockpile. And in return, we'll give you um, military technology that will allow you to threaten, Hawaii or the west coast of the United States. And in return, we want a whole bunch of your rounds. Well, those rounds are old, and they're pretty bad. They're not doing the job. Um, but what Vladimir Putin did when he visited Pyongyang this week and said, "We're going to give you military technology that will allow you to attack Hawaii on the west coast." He seemingly did not consider that maybe Seoul would have a response to that because the intermediate rounds and the medium range missile technology that Pyongyang could perhaps learn from the conflict here in Ukraine um, would be applicable to the conflict on the peninsula. And so suddenly Seoul was like, hey, 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 what? You're going to give all this technology to Pyongyang? Well, we produce a whole bunch of artillery rounds that are easily accessible by NATO standards. If you give it's a whole if you give you know aim succor to my enemy, well, I'm going to then conversely give support to my to the enemy of yours. So
Yeah.
they produce South Africa produces. South Africa is like the top five
South Korea.
producers. Yes,
South
I'm
Korea.
sorry, South Korea,
Yeah.
Seoul,
Yeah.
South Korea,
Hmm.
the Republic of Korea, ROK. The
Hmm.
ROK is one of the main producers of 155 millimeter artillery shells in the world because they have always anticipated an artillery exchange with the DPRK. So they have a huge stockpile. If Russia suddenly starts supporting Pyongyang and Kim Jong Un, Seoul is like, well, okay, we're going to start giving a whole bunch of shells to Ukraine. So sadly, the sad part of it is that it does look like this conflict is expanding beyond a regional conflict and it is becoming a world war. But on the side of Ukraine and Western benefit, it's like Korea's like, okay, okay, you're gonna give
Hmm.
support to Pyongyang. We got a
Right.
whole bunch of 159 millimeter shells that we can just ship on over to Ukraine, and you ain't gonna like
Hmm.
that. And
And they're
it's
better
not smart,
quality.
and they're better quality, and it's not smart from Putin's side. And Putin has done this repeatedly in this war,
Yeah.
where he's been like this immediate, like he did with Iran with the drones. Now he's doing with
Hmm.
North Korea with artillery rounds. It's like I want what you have, give it to me immediately, and I'm not going to consider the fact that your enemy will suddenly become my enemy. So Iran is giving a whole bunch of drone technology to and drone resources to Russia to fight in Ukraine. But who's Iran's biggest enemy? Saudi or Israel.
Right.
So they are
Hmm.
responding to that. Then he suddenly goes to North Korea and says, "You've got a whole bunch of, you know, you got a whole bunch of artillery rounds. We'd love to have those. Give them to us, and we, in exchange, will give you a bunch of missile technology." And then suddenly, Seoul in the Republic, the Republic of Korea, and in South Korea, are like, "Hey, what are you doing? If you're
Yeah.
going to give technology to our enemy, we're going to give our rounds to Ukraine." It's short-sighted and it's stupid, and it
Well, I
is,
don't know
and
that they have a
it is.
choice. I agree. I
No, they
agree that
don't.
it's short-sighted,
No,
but they don't actually
they're
have a
desperate.
choice.
They're
Yep.
desperate. They're
This is an act of
desperate.
desperation. It's a great example of the Iranian Shahed drones, which they were using, which is basically a go kart with wings. They're so loud you can hear them from a couple of miles away, and you can shoot them out of the air with conventional arms. This is not like they're selling them some sort of massive predator drone. Now Iran has some better ones, but they're mostly observational drones that they use, in the Middle East themselves and on their own people and that kind of stuff. So, like the Chinese, they have a lot of that kind of technology, non armed surveillance kind of stuff. And retrofitting those things to be functional is a lot of work. And all the people who would know how to do it, in large part in Russia, have been sent to the front lines to die with with an empty gun in their hands. So right now they're backed up against the wall. And so they go to Iran, they get these drones. That was supposed to be a hinge point. Remember that? Oh my God, they're going to get these Iranian drones, and then the
Yeah,
Ukrainians are
that'll be
done
the red
for.
line. Oh,
That was it. Yep. I mean, we remember these, like, the talking points graveyard. We heard this over and over and over again. Same thing here with the North Korean stuff, is that we are seeing repeatedly this situation where, they went to North Korea. Oh my God, they're going to get artillery shells from these. Well, no sooner did they do that than reports start showing up that these shells are blowing up in the barrels of Russian
yeah.
tanks
Mm-hmm.
because they're not giving them the good
Well,
ones.
because they're in their
Because
arms. Well,
well,
they're in an arms race.
the other thing too
They're in
is,
an arms race with
understand,
South Korea.
North Korea is also China's sock puppet right now, especially in dealing with Russia.
Yeah,
And we've already seen that they've
I,
started calling sections of
I get.
Russia by their Chinese name again, back from the Russo-Sino-Russian War. And, like, I don't know why you would trust somebody like that. It's madness.
Yeah, well, no, and also, I mean, if you've been to Seoul, anybody who's ever
Yeah,
been to Seoul, um, North Korea has the high ground at Seoul. Not
hmm,
just like into South Korea. Seoul, the capital of
right.
South Korea, is within artillery range because of the elevation. The ground, it's there's I don't hold me to this exact calculation, but there's about a 100-mile distance, that
Yeah,
50, 75-kilometer distance between Seoul and the border with North Korea, and North Korea has the high ground. So in
right,
if this is why they have, both North and South Korea have emphasized two things, and it is nukes and it is artillery.
right.
Nukes because it's this a deciding thing, which, like, if we nuke your capital, you'll nuke ours, and this mad
Hmm. Right,
mutually assured destruction mentality. But there's also an artillery argument between North and South, because the North has the highland overlooking Korea. I've been to Seoul, I don't know, 10 times. And you
hmm,
can see on a clear day, on a clear day, you can see North Korea, and they have
right,
the high ground, and they
right,
can just shell Seoul. So they're both into this kind of whole artillery thing. And so the North, because of their economics, has still produced artillery rounds, but they do it on the cheap, and they keep what they have, and that deteriorates. The South has created artillery rounds because they anticipate an artillery exchange. So they have a mass uh, resource, a stockpile of artillery rounds. What's now South
Hmm.
Korea is saying is if you, Russia, start to give aid to North Korea in terms of being able to attack in the medium term, which is what we see happening here in Ukraine. If you give to the DPRK that technology, not withstanding the technology that you give to our main ally, the United States, by enabling
Hmm.
them with intercontinental technology, that you are completely shifting the dynamic of the Cold War power struggle between North and South on the peninsula. So if
Right.
you're going to do that, Russia, then that means we have to, as South Korea and Seoul and the Republic of Korea, the ROK, we have to also adjust our complete you know, defensive structure. And that might include defeating Russia in Ukraine.
Hmm.
So suddenly,
Yep.
we might, here in Ukraine, start seeing a whole bunch of 155 millimeter rounds showing up with Korean stamps on the side of
Right.
those cargo boxes. So it was short sighted. It was stupid. It was and it just shows how desperate Putin is
Right. I
to
don't.
try and
Again, I
find
don't even know
some
that
sort of a system.
a a decision, short-sighted to some degree is a descriptive, it would assume that there is an option, would assume that there is a choice, right? And in this case,
Yeah,
there just isn't. They have run aground. They have no. This is all they've got left is to. And again, right now, think of what's happening from a strategic standpoint. You look at like the removal of the dollar and that kind of stuff, and what sanctions we're putting on. We're not taking over their foreign currency trade. As a matter of fact, we don't want to have anything to do with it. But China is using the Russian economy to prop up holes in the yuan, which is falling apart and is being destroyed by their real estate market, which is in utter free fall. And North Korea again has been a sock puppet of the CCP for a very long time. They like to give Kim Jong Un, the illusion that he's got his own, he runs his own business. This is your shop, buddy. We fill the shelves, but it's your shop. And why, again, there, if there was another option, it would make no sense for Russia to do this. But right now, they don't have a choice, and the stuff that they're getting from North Korea is garbage. And I mean, it would make sense for the North Koreans literally to sabotage them on purpose if China already has designs on reclaiming parts of Russian territory. Your friend becomes your worst enemy because again, China is already renaming Russian territories on maps back to their Chinese names from before the Russo-Sino War. That should tell you something. That there
yeah,
was no choice here. We got to take a break. We're into the last break, and I appreciate you hanging out and also Phil just being on with us. And is your power still out there right now? Are you running on backup
yeah.
battery,
You'll see
as it
if
were?
if
Okay.
you see the lights. If you see the lights on Olga return, it means we have power.
Yeah,
Right now, I'm on
I
red.
see. That's how we
Power
know.
is.
She's how we know. Okay, excellent. All right, we'll be back right after this. It's the House Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide. Chicago. All right. I don't hear Chicago, but okay, great. Thank you. I just didn't hear the crisscross music. Thank you. Um, yeah. Um, I know we have a bunch more questions, and that's probably scooped up a bunch of them around that. The Kaspersky thing. Do you notice that right after the U.S. sanctions
Oh,
Kaspersky, there's this
sorry.
huge
Yeah.
hit. There's this huge hit on car dealerships in the United States shutting down um, like the ability for people to buy cars in the United States across like it's a huge breach right at that time,
Oh
like
man,
on
there's
their way
all
out the
sorts
door.
of stuff. There's all
Yeah.
sorts of stuff going on right now with. I mean, there was an arrest in Montenegro. There was an arrest in Romania. There was an arrest in Holland.
Hmm.
Yeah. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, they have clearly decided that it's time to start undermining Western, um,
Well, yeah, and
the body
that's
politic.
the other thing that North Korea does well. That's the other thing
Yeah,
that they go. If you were going to go someplace
yeah,
and look for cyber criminals, North Korea is the hot spot.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
North, yeah. Thank you, appreciate it. Yeah, uh,
Well, Olga is not a common name here. Olha is.
Orka, right?
In Ukrainian, G is a hard G. I'm sorry. In Ukrainian, G is a H, and in Russian, it's
Here's the happy
G.
song is
So
playing. Just so you
Olha.
know, you can't hear it, but
Oh, yay!
Patron, hooray! Mm-hmm. There in the morning, be right by your side in the morning. You can make this. I hope that you like cereal. Uh,
Um,
Yay!
So we were
yay!
talking during the break, and I know we have more questions. I want to get to them, but one of the things, of course, is that um, the Russia's been, using cyber attacks for years, and they have no qualms about attacking civilian infrastructure, particularly things like hospitals and like railways, things that result in crashes and death, right? As opposed to tying up your ticketing system at an airport, which is difficult, maybe hurts business. It's definitely affects civilians, but for the most part, it does not end up getting people killed. If anything, people stay out of the air in a Russian plane, which might end up in the dirt anyways. But this, the Kaspersky software, which is one of the big softwares in the country for fighting cyber attacks, the Russians obviously, invested very heavily in growing this since the '90s, and getting their toe in the door in this particular industry. And so the U.S. finally got around to, under Joe Biden, sanctioning Kaspersky and shutting it down because of all the backdoors in it that allow them to get into your stuff. And right as they're leaving, it's weird that certain all over America, there's these attacks on car dealerships and their ability to sell cars, and just kind of the last remnants of people who had used Kaspersky, it seems, are getting struck by this. Meanwhile, the Ukrainians, there's a report, it was like about a week ago, um, that Ukraine did a massive cyber attack on on Russian airports to bring down their ticketing system and shut them down. It was they literally did it in preparation for Russia Day to hang it up, which is like attacking China right before Chinese New Year as far as flights and stuff. The biggest, most traveled day in the country by far. So this comes as no surprise, but there, again, it goes to that sort of like attacks. Like if you're going to go anywhere in this in the world for cyber criminals and to bring them onto your team, North Korea is one of those places. North Korea
Well,
is
no,
a cybercrime capital.
yeah, and there's a story I saw today, and I don't want to hang my hat
Mhm.
on it because I need to do more research on it. But there's a story out of the Czech Republic of a Colombian who was hired by a Russian sock puppet to fly to Prague and destroy um, public um, public transport buses in Prague, with the sole purpose of creating chaos and a breakdown in infrastructure in Prague. But what was interesting was to me was the fact that they were, they go to Colombia to find a disaffected, kind of a militia member, and then they fly him to the Czech Republic, and they tell him he's doing kind of a insurance policy attack for some rich oligarch in Czech. So he's got kind of communist mentality or
Sympathies,
sympathies,
yeah.
but really, what he's doing is just destabilizing society and social structure within Czech. These guys are really good at what they do. The
Yeah.
Russians are exceptionally good at sowing discontent and creating chaos in all democracies, including ours. And
Yeah.
it's it it's not just like, oh, they did this. It's like, oh, they did this, but
Yeah.
then somebody supported them, and then somebody was behind them, and then there was another piece of the web that ultimately leads back to Moscow. And they're really, really good at it. And
Right.
it's
Because they don't
there's going to
care.
be more
There's a
chaos. There's going to be more chaos. They
empathy is
don't care. It's
empathy
not
is a
about,
when it
yeah,
no
it's just chaos.
empathy is a huge
Yeah, they
drag
just want to
on
sow
these kind of
chaos. Yeah,
attacks, and they don't have any.
yeah.
The other thing too is that
It's going to get
I
worse.
was like, there was a report 2 weeks ago that there was a huge Russian cyber attack on NHS hospitals in England from a Russian group of cyber
Yeah,
criminals who work for the
they
state.
did.
They're about as separate as Wagner was. They're called Qilin, Qilin. That's how they pronounce it. And Qilin attacked the NHS and canceled surgeries and operations that people had. This is not the same as
Yeah,
just shutting the lights
to
off
undermine the
and going, okay,
NHS,
we have generators.
undermine the NHS,
Right.
and create chaos in the system. Yeah,
And 20%
they're
of the
just spoilers.
voters who are the same Brexit people and all that kind of stuff that overlap with the maggots here in the United States will blame the NHS for its failure, not the fact that it was attacked and not,
Well,
yeah,
look at what what Nigel Farage just said today, which is
Farage, yeah.
that he blamed the West. The main champion for Brexit, saying that the West was the instigator of the war, and it's 100% not true. But
Right.
they
Well,
will
even Trump
get
said it.
on board
Trump
with
said it
that
on a show this week.
argument.
He blamed NATO this
Yeah,
week. He just parroted it,
yeah,
and I got to say that his like empty sponge head brain, I feel like it was just like it wasn't even like he regurgitated a talking point. It was much simpler than that. It just bounced off of his dome. You know what I mean? It just kind of like a talking point that just came in and went
yeah,
out.
yeah.
Let's grab another question. We got about 4 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get a couple of questions in if we could.
Sure, I've got one here from Nick Rich. Ask Phil about how grocery stores are holding up.
Hmm.
We're fine for the most part. Power is the issue. Stock is not the issue. You can get food, but the problem is that because of the electrical issue, and we just had a very large scale attack on the electrical grid here in Ukraine last night. But by and large, the problem is the fact that you cannot keep the lights on. So
Hmm.
it's not stock; it's the fact that you know we don't we can't keep things refrigerated.
Right. Gotcha. Let's grab another one, Johnny.
All right, and the other one is from Orb Rumor. Can you ask Phil if he knows who Pavlo Genadijevich
Oh, this
Ishevets
is
is, also known as Mustang Wanted?
Oh, boy. No, I have no idea who that is. I'm sorry. I mean, there's a lot going on here, so
yeah.
um, uh, I don't know who that is.
Right.
Asked and answered. That's
Um,
really all I've got right now.
Okay, good. All right. Well, that brings us close to the end of the show, anyways. Tonight, Sexy Liberal in Denver. If you're coming, come up and say hi, especially if you're here for the meet and grope. And then, of course, we've got coming up Boston, where our dear friend Boston Brian will be visiting with us. We got a bunch of corresponding Nerd Halen gigs that are coming with these. Check out nerdhalen.com. And of course, I want to encourage everybody to both follow and subscribe Johnny Million's show on Tuesdays and Thursdays at Twitch and YouTube on It's Johnny Million, and On the Edge, where if you think we go in depth here on what's going on in Ukraine, Phil is digging deep in a way that I think many of our
Okay,
listeners
Bill
who care
Browder.
about this issue can
Bill,
appreciate. Yep,
yeah.
Bill Browder
This week
tomorrow.
is
Yeah,
Bill Browder.
and
No
and
joke.
here's
No joke. That
and
is a great
I'm gonna
conversation.
and I think the takeaway from this episode of the show is by all measures, everything the Republicans are selling right now, they're selling out of fear, including Project 2025, including their kind of clinging to Russia, all that kind of stuff. This is an act of desperation, and it reeks of it. They know, everything they talk about Joe Biden coming up on this debate is because they know Donald Trump is a mess, and they're aware of this. Every word they say in promotion of Vladimir Putin is a way to keep him, the naked emperor up onto the horse for a little while longer, because they all know he's a mess. And things are trending in a very good way on all fronts. The economy in the United States, the overall tenor of and protection of democracy worldwide. And there's a reason why all of these autocracies are having to group together, because they're no good on their own. And the irony that they're going to form their own little democracy of autocratic leaders is hilarious. So everybody, take care of yourselves and take care of somebody else. And we'll see you next week.
Yay.
Thanks, everyone.
Yep. Thanks, Chicago.
Thanks, Chicago.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Chicago.
And we're clear. Ta-da!
And scene.
Yay! Fuck!
Yay.
Fucking
Yeah.
fuck.
Right, now you can say it. Now you're all free. Just get it out. Yeah. So thank you guys so much. I'm going to let you go because I got to prep for tonight.
Good episode tomorrow on Sunday. Bill Browder.
Great. Yeah.
No joke.
Everybody,
Awesome.
chat room, check it out. And I think also did I miss anybody in here? Candy, thank you for the super chat as well. Erica, and thanks everybody for the Venmos that came in. You guys have been great. Susan, there you go. And okay, there was the message from you about Phil's electricity earlier. Still out because Olga is still in the dark, but we do what we can.
But Phil managed.
That's
Well
right.
done, Phil.
That's right.
Yep.
Yeah,
We'll be okay.
absolutely.
We'll be okay. We'll be fine. Fuck 'em.
All right. Yeah, exactly.
All right, guys.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you so
Safe
much.
travels,
And
pal.
I will see you. Thank you. Appreciate it. We will see you again soon. Okay.
Right.
Bye.
I'll give my love to everybody.
Bye.
Give my love to everybody.
Okay.
It's Sexy Liberal.
I will.
All right.
I will. I'll
Take
pass
care.
it on. All right.
Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Yeah, please do.
And
Bye bye.
yeah. Bye. There we go. What is this window? There we go. Hi. Oh, totally zoomed in. Let's go to this one, and then we do the thing, and then I don't know why it's scroll. Wee. And then this should be. There we go. That's a little better, I guess. Hi, everybody. Thank you guys so much, chat room. Really appreciate you guys being with us today. Hopefully, audio was pretty good. I know Phil was a little choppy, but again, he is in Ukraine, in Kiev, without power right now. So the fact that he's on the show at all is a miracle. And thank you guys who were super chatting and Venmoing today and supporting the show through Patreon. Really appreciate it. I'm working on kind of a better, cleaner way of doing the show on the road that's consistent, that doesn't require me buying a new computer. So wish me luck. And anyways, love you guys. Take care, and I will see you soon. Bye.